It's a proven fact that a new console release is more exciting than Christmas. Christmas comes once a year, while a new console only shows up every 6 years or so. Less is more. After all, which coincidentally enough is why I only buy my family Christmas presents once every 6 Christmases. Make that Toblerone last, little Jimmy. You'll not be getting another until you turn 18. Ugh, you scamp. What's more, console launches are accompanied by a cherished gaming tradition: launch titles. And that's what we're celebrating today. So join me as we count down the 10 best launch titles of all time. Before we begin, let's lay down one important ground rule. To qualify for this list, the game has to have been part of the launch lineup for the console's earliest release. For example, the NES hit the US and Europe years after its Japanese launch. Super Mario Bros. Was part of the console's Western launch lineup, but was not part of the Famicom's launch in the East, so it and games in similar situations don't count. Basically, I'm explaining that the Dreamcast's original Japanese launch lineup was utter pants, so don't get angry with me that it's not here. Also, some honorable mentions: Super Mario Land for the Game Boy, Doom for the 32X, Virtua Fighter for the Saturn, Wii Sports for the Wii, and New Super Mario Bros. U for the Wii U. With that out of the way, I'm Ben from TripleJump, and here are the 10 best console launch titles of all time. Number 10. Condemned Criminal Origins, Xbox 360. The Xbox 360 did wonders for Microsoft back in 2005. The original Xbox had an understandably tough time competing with the globally dominant PS2, but the Xbox 360, with its user-friendly approach and fair cost, pushed the company into the realms of actual competition. It had some pretty good launch titles too. The best of the bunch is Condemned Criminal Origins. While certainly not a world beater, I bet many of you forgot this even existed, Condemned was well received by critics and has become a bit of a cult classic. It had all the hallmarks of a great horror game: a genuinely chilling atmosphere, frantic combat, puzzle-solving intense situations, a haunting soundtrack, memorable moments, and the fact that it was actually scary, something that horror games can often forget. Condemned didn't do anything new, but it took the best elements of the genre and put them together in one exceptional package. Number 9. Resistance: Fall of Man, PlayStation 3. The PS3 didn't get off to the best start. It was overpriced, it lacked many quality games, and Sony's less-than-friendly approach in those early days of the console left a lot to be desired. While they certainly turned it around later in the system's life, one quality launch exclusive was Resistance: Fall of Man. To be a good first-person shooter, you need to be good at, well, shooting in the first person. Resistance did this beautifully, being an impactful and visceral experience, one of the best the genre had seen. While it could sometimes fall into the FPS trap of concrete corridors and swarms of the same enemy, most of Resistance was vast and had an impressive sense of scale, making you feel small and the enemy more threatening. Unfortunately for Resistance, it was released within days of another alien shooter on the Xbox 360, Gears of War, which trounced it in sales and is still considered one of the best shooters ever. If it weren't for Gears, maybe Resistance would still be around today. Great game though. Number 8. Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag, Xbox One and PlayStation 4. Assassin's Creed 4 Black Flag was a revelation, not that one. For a series that was already tired by its third outing, we believed that Black Flag would be the one to shake things up, to go rogue. Not that one, or at least go back to the ingenuity of its origins. Not that one either, come on. It goes to show how weak the first-party support for the Xbox One and PlayStation 4 was when they launched, considering that the fourth numbered outing of a series from a third-party developer was the best thing on either system. Killzone Shadowfall was a fine PS4 exclusive, but it was mainly about showing what the system could do visually, a graphical flex if you will. Black Flag, though, had it all. If you were an Assassin's Creed fan already, it was more Assassin's Creed. If you weren't, well, Black Flag was the best pirate game of all time. Sorry, Guybrush. Setting sail on an odyssey, that's enough of that, across the colossal map is one of the best gaming experiences of the last generation. It admittedly came out on the previous generation of consoles a couple of weeks before, but it still served as a proper launch title for the new consoles. And we're glad it did. This list would be one entry shorter if it hadn't, after all. Number 7. Super Monkey Ball, GameCube. It could have very easily been Luigi's Mansion in this spot. You may even think that it should have been, but we're going with Spherical Simian Simulator Super Monkey Ball. Nintendo's first disc-based console had a tough time in the early 2000s. Not only was it about 6 years late to the disc party, but it was also competing with the PS2 and, newbie to the scene, the original Xbox.
Well, thanks, Rock.
It was outsold by both of them. This generation did mark the end of Sega consoles, so that was a win for Nintendo, I suppose. Hey, yay. Super Monkey Ball is pure arcade fun. It's a simple, no-nonsense game about guiding a ball with a monkey in it, which I assume is also super, around a series of platforms. If tense gameplay and copious amounts of failing isn't your thing, or if you're a renowned rage quitter, it might not be for you, but as a frantic party game, you'd struggle to find anything more entertaining. Number 6. Donkey Kong, ColecoVision, and Famicom. Okay, so this is cheating a bit. For a start, Donkey Kong began as an arcade game. It wasn't until a couple of years later that it debuted on a home console. While you'd think that a Nintendo game would have begun its console life on a Nintendo system, the Famicom wouldn't appear until a year after Coleco brought the arcade classic to their ColecoVision. There was nothing nefarious at play. Coleco was simply the highest bidder, and so DK became an important part of the ColecoVision's launch. Donkey Kong was also a launch title for the Famicom in 1983, a year after the ColecoVision port, finally bringing the ape where he belongs. The game itself is obviously legendary, you don't need me to tell you that. It was the first appearance of Mario after all, then known as Jumpman. Fun fact, Donkey Kong was Mario's pet. In the sequel, Donkey Kong Jr., you try to rescue your father from the clutches of the evil Mario, so technically, Mario started out as a villain, and in my eyes, he still is. Number 5. The Legend of Zelda: Twilight Princess. Wii. There's likely no question in gaming that garners such a variety of answers as which is the best Zelda game? The series has proven to be a bastion of quality, and no other franchise has provided as many iconic titles with such levels of consistency. Twilight Princess is among the best. It's everything you'd expect from a 3D Zelda experience, that being an impeccable level of polish in every regard. Nintendo has an uncanny ability to raise the bar each and every time a Legend of Zelda game releases, and they did the same again in 2006 for Twilight Princess. Considering that the game also came out on GameCube at the same time, it was already on the back foot from a technical standpoint. Not that that's a problem, Nintendo had long since proved that it isn't graphical quality that makes a great game. The only thing keeping Twilight Princess from a higher placing is the fact that it didn't have much of an impact on the Wii in the long run. It sold well enough, but it was an outlier on a system that served a far more casual market. Number 4. Super Mario World, Super Famicom. Released in 1990 in Japan, the Super Famicom only had 2 launch titles, Super Mario World and F-Zero. This means that, by default, the Super Famicom has the best launch lineup ever! Wow! The Super Famicom crossed over to the States a year later as the Super Nintendo Entertainment System, alongside a console debut for the classic SimCity, and a year after that, in Europe. While F-Zero could comfortably make this list on its own, Super Mario World is impossible to ignore, and I'm not putting 2 games from the same console on here because integrity, I suppose. Super Mario World was the first game on the system and ultimately its best-selling game, for good reason too. Due to the legacy of the SNES, Super Mario World is definitely in the running for the most iconic Mario game of all time, which is no easy feat. The generational jump from 8-bit to 16-bit needed a signature game to ring in the new era, and Super Mario World was exactly that. Its crisp, clean, and vibrant visuals were a marvel for the time. To some, certainly it may seem like just another Mario game, but if a game this good can be considered just another entry, that says just about everything you need to know about the incredible quality of the series. Number 3. Halo Combat Evolved, Xbox. There's a reason that Xbox's success is linked so intrinsically with Halo, and a reason that, whenever a new console is due to launch, people wonder how soon there'll be a new Halo on it. The reason is that there possibly wouldn't still be an Xbox brand without it. As I mentioned earlier, Xbox could have easily vanished after its first console.
That is impressive.
The PS2 was doing incredibly well, eventually becoming the best-selling console ever. Nintendo were there still, and Xbox still stepped up to the plate. The only leg they had to stand on was a little game called Halo. Thankfully, it was so good it basically single-handedly established the platform as real competition. Subsequent titles in the series even further reinforced Microsoft's position in the marketplace. Halo Combat Evolved redefined the console shooter. Halo 2 became the standard for multiplayer. Halo 3 brought everything together and added an incredible story. These three plucky little games defined Microsoft's early years in the console industries. Now, they own everything! It's pretty much the story of Rocky, now that I think about it, up until halfway through Rocky 4 anyway. Hopefully Bethesda won't go the way of Apollo Creed? Hopefully. Number 2. The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild. Nintendo Switch. The Switch had a great first year. Not only did they release a big-name first-party game pretty much monthly, but the console became many people's go-to choice for indie games, mainly due to its portability. Despite a couple of issues with analog sticks and battery life, the Switch was a tremendous console, and oh my, did it have a great launch game. Breath of the Wild was a tremendous way to showcase what the Switch could do. From its incredible first look at E3 2014, accompanied by a cheeky click foreshadowing of the Switch, to its eventual release 3 years and a console generation later, the hype for Breath of the Wild was high. Not only did it deliver on that promise, but Link's latest adventure was probably his greatest yet. The Legend of Zelda has always felt like it should be a true open-world game, one seamless and without the need for loading screens. Breath of the Wild achieved this, and as the series has done multiple times, redefined the modern adventure game in the process. Admittedly, Link is not the strongest of protagonists, but even though every cutscene involving him has about as much emotion as an audiobook of the dictionary, we shouldn't let that take away from a game this outstanding. Number 1. Super Mario 64. Nintendo 64. Could it really be anything else? Could it even be any other company? Nintendo have already dominated this list, and there could have easily been more. In fact, there is one more, because Super Mario 64 DS was a launch title for their dual-screen handheld too. When the Nintendo 64 came out in 1996, it was already seen as dated. The PlayStation released a couple of years before, and the fact that the N64 was still using cartridges immediately put it at a disadvantage. But Super Mario 64 put any worry of inferiority aside, as it quickly became the best 3D platformer of the 90s. Well, Mario 64 or Bubsy 3D. What's even more impressive is that the game still holds up today, something that can't be said for a lot of early 3D games. In a time when the third dimension was a relatively new concept in gaming, Nintendo cracked it with Mario 64. Plus, the version on the DS had Wario as a playable character. It's like all of my Christmases have come at once. And that's our list. Which games would you have chosen? Should all 10 have starred Mario? Leave a comment and let us know below. You can follow myself and TripleJump on Twitter here, and while you're at it, why not support the things you enjoy by having a look at our Patreon. Finally, don't forget to like the video, share it with your friends, and subscribe to the channel. I'm Ben from TripleJump, and thanks for watching.